3-Point Shot, Chapter 29. The room had gone quiet with Shuichi's bold claim. Not a moment ago, he could barely bring himself to stand, and now he believed he had solved the case almost in its entirety? He seemed to flip between the two extremes almost immediately. All the same, he held firm. The person who had access to something that could poison someone, the person who had the right motive, the person who was responsible for Gonta-kun's death. His finger pointed dead on at his prime suspect, much to the shock of the group. You're the only one! It has to be you, Angie Yonaga. The artist was shaken, her eyes going wide at the accusation. What are you saying? Saikawa-kun, that's ridiculous! Kibo protested. Angie-san was closer to Gota-kun than any of us. Why would she kill him? You were the only one who had access to chemicals that could be used to poison someone, Shuichi continued, ignoring the concerns of the other students. Angie had poison chemicals? The religious girl questioned. She doesn't remember having those. That's because you weren't usually using them for poisons, but you were regularly mixing up compounds for your own use, the detective reasoned.
Wait a second!
Miyu interrupted.
When did Artsy become an expert chemist?
You don't have to be a chemist to know if something isn't safe for human consumption, Shuichi explained. You just need to be well versed in the materials you're working with. At that moment, it clicked in Maki's mind.
Angie mixes her own paint.
The black-haired boy nodded. Paint in and of itself is dangerous enough to consume, but with the various base parts, you could easily create a substance that could kill anyone who ingested it.
And Angie knew how dangerous mixing paint could be.
Himiko recalled.
She wore a face mask whenever she did it.
Kaede turned to face the artist.
Angie-san, is this true?
Angie's response was a smirk and a quick chuckle. Like, OMG, you guys are totes crazy. Angie would never do something like that. I mean, yeah, okay, Angie could probably make poison if she really wanted to, but Angie's only concern up to now has been protecting everybody according to God's will. Why would Angie kill anybody, much less Gonta? Actually, once you realize how Gonta ingested the poison, it becomes perfectly clear that he was never your target, Shuichi asserted. Like what? Tojo-san, remind us, Shuichi requested. What were you doing just before you blacked out?
I was making tea for...
Kirumi trailed off as she began to realize what happened.
Could it be?
So Angie poisoned the tea, and Gonta drank it?
Ryoma reasoned. But how does that explain Kirumi's blackout? Kaito wondered.
The theoretically poisoned tea bags would have been placed in hot water, and the steam would have brought some of it into the air.
Maki explained.
If the poison's fumes were strong enough, they could knock Toju into unconsciousness. And if that was the potency of the fumes, anyone who actually ingested it would have been a goner.
You seem to know a lot about poison, Harukawa-chan, Kokichi commented. Her eyes went wide, realizing she may have said too much.
Safety precaution.
She lied.
Make sure kids don't get into something they shouldn't.
Makes sense, Kaito agreed. No, it doesn't, Angie protested. How in the world did Angie poison the tea bags? Those things are super tiny, and if she did something to them, Kirumi would have noticed easily.
She is right. I didn't notice anything wrong with the tea bags as I was brewing the tea.
Kirumi recalled. I never said the tea bags were what contained the poison, Shuichi countered. And once you know what was poisoned, the whole case falls into place.
But
what could have been poisoned if not the tea bags or the water?
Kaede asked. Shuichi looked to Kirumi once more. Tojo-san, who was that tea for? The maid's eyes went wide again as the possibilities raced through her mind.
I made it at Oma-kun's request.
Oma-kun likes midday tea, Shuichi reminded everyone. And there's one thing in particular he likes added to his tea. Honey, Kokichi noted. Ah, that's how she did it. The honey was what contained the poison, Shuichi revealed. Meaning Angie's true intended victim was never Gonta-kun, but Oma-kun. Angie gulped. That's... well, Angie wouldn't want to kill Kokichi either.
You seemed pretty upset when you found out he had betrayed you.
Kaede recounted.
Not to mention, he's been kind of an ass every chance he gets.
Miyu agreed.
And he killed Tenko.
Himiko exclaimed.
I think it's safe to say we all have some cause to want Alma dead.
Maki summarized. The dictator sniffled. Why are you all so mean to me? Sure, I did bad things. Sure, I lie a lot. But you actually want to kill me? His showcase of crocodile tears spilled forth yet again before disappearing as quickly as they arrived. But it does explain a lot. The honey also answers the strangest question of all. The detective continued. Why did Gonta-kun come to Tojo-san's lab?
Because of honey?
Ryoma questioned. Gonta-chan's lab had a full jar of honey in it, Kokichi explained. Just one day after he gave a fresh batch to Tojo-san. No beehive could possibly make that much honey that quickly.
Then the jar in his lab,
Kirumi reasoned.
it must have been the one I had from before. The entire jar I had today was full of the fake concoction.
And to hide it, Angie-san put the old jar in Gonta-kun's lab, hoping he wouldn't notice. Shuichi concluded.
But then he did notice.
Kaede realized.
And he came to Tojo-san's lab to ask her if something had happened to the jar of honey he gave her.
That's completely insane! Angie protested. Even if all that happened, that doesn't explain the obvious question. Why did Gonta die? Who made him drink the poison? That's the real killer, not Angie!
Just stop.
Himiko requested. Huh? The artist replied. The mage was wearing a defeated look on her face. Her eyes had grown weary the more the conversation wore on.
It happened to him, just like it happened to Tenko.
She said.
It happened because he tried to protect us.
What are you talking about? Kaito asked.
Toju keeps saying she heard the door open before she blacked out.
The redhead reminded him.
That means Gonta saw her drop to the floor. He put her on the chair and wrapped her up in the blanket because he wanted to help.
Kibo's eyes went wide. And then he tried to figure out what happened to her. The mage nodded and proceeded to paint a verbal picture of the crime.
She was next to a fresh set of tea, the honey already mixed in. Gonta knew that the tea must have had something to do with what happened, or at least could have guessed. But because he wasn't that bright, he figured the best way to investigate
Was a taste test.
Maki finished.
But by doing that, he ingested the poison. As soon as it hit his system, he started reacting violently, bringing down the tea set and the nearby table, before he collapsed himself. That's why it looked like there was a struggle, even though he had no internal injuries.
So, how about it, Angie-san? Shuichi challenged. Did I miss anything? Angie merely smiled. But this wasn't like her regular smile. This was the smile she wore when she enforced her will on the art club. The smile she coupled with glassy, soulless eyes, showing no hint of emotion. With this grim visage overtaking her, she brushed away Shuichi's inquiry. Miss anything? Angie thinks you missed a lot. Huh? Angie didn't poison anybody. Gonta drank the tea himself. That's God's will. There is nothing that connects Angie to the crime. You're gonna pin this on God? Kaito shouted in disbelief. Angie remained calm, however. God works in mysterious ways. You can't prove Angie had anything to do with the crime. That is incorrect!